Hi, good morning and welcome back to the Outperforming the Environment series. We are now on episode 6 of a few episodes that we're going to do. I think there's 13 in total that we're going to do on this particular subject. So welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about how do we normally respond to environmental changes. And it's a very, very important topic. I don't know if I say this every time, but if I do, it's because they are all very, very important. Now, normally when things start to change, we are programmed, our default settings are for us to respond in a negative way. Like we respond with anger, we respond with despondency, with blame, with, this is everyone else's fault, not my own. Those sort of things, those are natural default settings that we are going to naturally go to all the time. So what we're going to discuss here today is how do we move away from that and move more towards a positive response to environmental changes. Okay, so Simon, let's just get straight into explaining this.
Yeah, let's start with a typical organization with an average CEO. Because you see, when changes happen, usually it's the CEO that's got the ultimate responsibility to make sure that the organization is performing according to how it's supposed to go, based on its strategic goals and the vision. So it's the CEO's responsibility to ensure that the organization is performing and is going in the right direction according to their plans and not responding to the environment or following environmental trends. But now when changes happen, normally these changes are triggered either from within the organization or they are triggers from outside, external changes. So every change has got some triggers. So that's a critical point that we need to understand first of all. Every change has got a trigger, something that triggers the change. Now when the trigger happens, there are certain early warning signs that normally happen. If it's in a business, there are certain early warning signs that things have changed. And one of the easiest ones to measure, if it's a commercial profit-making organization, is the change in sales. When you see that your sales, your month-by-month sales, they are on a decline, and then they begin to mark a trend. At times it's just the difference, the magnitude of the difference between one month and the other. They can tell you that there's been a drastic change somewhere. Or it can be a small change that is happening over a period of time. But that change is actually a pattern. So the numbers are starting to fall. Now, when those indicators start happening, early warning signs, they are so subtle most of the time. But what normally happens is sometimes the CEO is not even aware of these subtle changes. Usually someone else, maybe it's the guy in finance or in sales, who starts to pick these things up for the average CEO. Right. Then when that happens, usually the CEOs have a tendency of the average ones. The first one is the mode of denial. So they'll kind of dismiss, actually denial and dismissal. They'll dismiss like it's just a passing phase or something. They'll look for something to rationalize.
A common thing to say as that we've heard and experienced in our workings is, this is normal.
Yeah.
It happens like this all the time.
Exactly.
But that's when the people, the decision makers, haven't been looking for the trends. They haven't been looking for what's actually there.
Exactly. Yeah. So the idea is the first stages when the early warning signs are coming. That is if they can pick them up. Sometimes they even can't pick the early warning signs very early enough. Now, what happens, like what you are saying, if the intelligence is not effective, intelligence gathering systems are not effective, they won't know because they are not aware of what's really going on in the environment. So they can't predict the changes as they are coming. So they'll tend to dismiss the actual results to say, maybe it's just a passing phase, or they start to rationalize things. So the first thing that happens is these two things. Denial and dismissal. First of all is dismissal. They just dismiss, it's just a passing phase. Don't worry about that. Things will get back to normal. So that's the first stage. Then, the trend can continue. or maybe there will be just a slight, because normally these changes are not linear. It can have maybe 1 month something goes up again, and they say, okay, we are going back on track.
Yeah.
They are not noticing that maybe it's just one random event that has happened in a random peak in the cells, but actually the trend is actually continuing to go down. Then you reach a stage where the second stage is denial. The CEO starts denying that this thing is real. So it's denying that this trend is not going to change. So they will always try to look for things to rationalize and to explain the situation, not accepting it and taking it seriously, which is critical. So the average CEO can start,
One thing you just mentioned there that I think we need to just focus on there is that as soon as as soon as the people notice that the results are not what they should be, the environment has changed.
Yeah.
That natural requirement to now explain this to other people, that is the biggest alarm clock.
Exactly.
Not alarm clock, alarm bell.
Yeah, exactly.
That we need to hear as employees, as fellow business people.
Exactly.
As soon as someone starts explaining something,
Yeah.
you've got to suspect that there's something that they're not talking about.
Exactly.
And that's where we need to help them. You need to say, hey, look, let's think about this actually really, and let's remove ourselves from the situation so that we can see it for what it is. Because the moment you start explaining something, you know that there's an issue, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah. And also, normally you find some companies, it's amazing, some companies, even big ones, they run without projections. Like cash profits, sales projections. They also run without trends, without understanding trends. Because trends will give you an indication. Like if you expect your projection is this way, and then your trend and the results you are getting are this way, you should be able to make a decision to see that things are changing now. So without those indicators like projections and trends, it becomes very difficult to pick some of these early warning signs and these changes happening. So denial will come in. They'll start rationalizing. But as the situation continues to worsen, then there is another set of emotions that starts coming in. The first one is anxiety. Because now the CEO is beginning to see that maybe he was wrong in denying and refusing to take action.
What's the biggest cause, in your opinion, of anxiety? Where is anxiety caused from?
Anxiety comes from uncertainty. Yeah. Exactly. It comes from uncertainty. You are now
no plan, no strategy.
Exactly.
No, I don't know really where
exactly. Yeah. Anxiety is uncertainty. It's that emotion where you are not sure about what's going to happen next. That is where it comes from. For example, if you've got somebody that you love who is not feeling well, you become anxious because you are hopeful that the person is going to recover, but you are also concerned that maybe you are going to lose the person. The person may die. So it's a very delicate emotion that is called anxiety. So the CEO becomes anxious because he's now uncertain about his decisions and about where things are now going. Because he can see that things are not changing, they are getting worse. But he does not know whether this trend is going to change, improve, or it's going to continue. So anxiety comes in. So anxiety is dangerous. That's one thing. So for leaders, that's why it's important to understand the issue of emotional intelligence. Not from an intellectual point of view, but actually developing the intelligence so that you'll be able to handle and to manage your emotions, so that when these things are happening, you'll be able to manage anxiety. Because once anxiety sets in a CEO, it alters the structure of decision making.
We call it like a cancer.
Yes.
Because the cancer, once you get cancer in your body, it spreads to all parts of your body. And it's the same, and especially like the CEO is the head of the company.
Yes.
So if you get the cancer in the head, it rapidly spreads
exactly
to the rest of the body, and it rapidly spreads to the rest of the company, which means that everyone becomes anxious.
Precisely.
And therefore, everyone becomes unproductive.
Exactly. So this anxiety now, it alters the way a person makes decisions. So that's why we're talking about emotional intelligence. People think that decision making is affected by these big storms, emotional storms. But even small changes in mood can actually affect a person's decision making very seriously.
Yeah.
So anxiety becomes a big key issue. And like what you have said, once the CEO becomes anxious, you cannot hide anxiety.
Yeah.
The whole team begins to see that the leader is now anxious. And the whole leadership system is now flawed.
Yeah.
Because once the leader is anxious, everyone else becomes very anxious, even more anxious, because they won't know now if he's anxious, what about us? You know,
Yeah.
and it creates a very terrible, catastrophic, event that will spread throughout the organization. So when that happens, normally you will find that the CEO's capacity to think is also undermined, because anxiety also creates a lot of toxic chemicals that affect the person's energy. They start consuming the CEO's energy.
Yeah.
Right. This is where we say most CEOs, when they fall into some of these challenges, they need to get help quickly.
Yeah.
Because when they are on, once anxiety sets in, it creates a different dynamic in the way they think, and it affects their decision making. It affects their energy. It affects even their relationships with people at home and even in the organization. Everything changes. That anxiety is not managed well. It can lead to serious issues like depressions for the CEO. Some of them can actually get into depressions. Yeah.
Yeah, it's common. It's common for them to get into depression because
Yes.
of the pressure.
Yes.
If you're a CEO of a business, everything is your fault.
Yeah.
This is what we teach people.
Yes.
Everything is your fault, and the good stuff that happens is the reward belongs to your team.
Exactly.
And that's a sign of good leadership, of a good CEO.
Exactly.
Now, because of all of that pressure, it's common
Yeah.
for CEOs to be on antidepressive drugs and to develop unhealthy tendencies in their own personalities to compensate for the pressure that they're under all the time. So it is extremely important that the moment you find, if you're a CEO, the moment you find yourself feeling this anxiety and this uncertainty, is seek help. And seek help from psychologists, psychiatrists,
Yeah.
and strategists, people that can come and help you with your business side of it, come and give you or reassure you that what you're doing is right, or if it's
Exactly.
not right.
Exactly.
This is because it's normally a tiny change that needs to happen,
Exactly.
and it's just having the courage to admit that something might not be right and to find the people that can come and help you.
So what happens next is, after anxiety, when the CEO is no longer certain about whether he has got the capacity to swing the results back, and the results are starting, and when you start losing sales, there are a lot of other things, operational costs, the ability meeting salaries, meeting all the other operating expenses becomes a problem, because the sales are diminished, and the profits are starting to, profitability and everything, revenues, they are seriously affected by sales. So when the CEO is no longer sure about his capacity to change things around, he becomes fearful of meeting the CEO, the shareholders, fearful of meeting the other people. Why? Because he can't explain. He can't give a CEO type answer to the situation that the organization is facing. Because people want a solution to say, Mr. CEO or Mrs. CEO, what's your plan for taking us out of this situation? What do you think? And then when you have no solution, because now anxiety, remember we're talking anxiety is setting, so your decision making is already flawed. It's compromised by those toxic emotions and all the other things that are happening in your mind. So you become very fearful. And once you are fearful, you find that most CEOs, they will now withdraw from the front, from meeting the people, from communities, from networks, from all the other places where they're supposed to be healthy, so that they interact in a healthy way. They start withdrawing. They remove themselves from everyone else. And in addition to that, they actually become irritated at times when they are asked, like, what do you think? Everyone who asks a question or makes a comment, they can easily get irritated, because they don't want people asking them about the situation now, because they have no control. We are talking about serious psychological stuff that actually happens. So you become irritable. They don't want to be asked questions about what's going on in the company. And if they are still in this denial mode, that's where they will start continue rationalizing and start blaming other, things. The situation is being caused by so and so, by the environment, by weather, by so and so, by other things apart from themselves. They are now trying to protect their ego and also protecting their position, because they know that the consequences of being seen as a failure in an organization, if you are CEO, means dismissal. And dismissal means loss of income, loss of status, loss of relationships, loss of everything that is attached to being a CEO. So that's the problem. The next stage that happens from fearfulness, confusion will set in the organization. When confusion sets in an organization and things are not working out well, it's like tilting the slope even further. And the company will fall even faster from that moment. Because you hear most of the people in organizations that are facing serious problems, everyone is asking like, what's going on? No one really knows, because the CEO is withdrawn. He has no answers to what's going on. Cannot explain, cannot give something that is logical to say this is my plan for taking ourselves out of this situation. Leadership is lost. The leader is there, but leadership is lost. So without leadership, there's confusion. See? So with this whole confusion setting in, you find that people who are normally performers, they will start, thinking about leaving the organization. See, this is what normally happens, and this causes the serious collapse. The rate of collapse will now increase, because now there's confusion. People really know that they've got their value. They are looking for other companies that are still functioning well. So they want to leave. They are there physically, but psychologically they're absent. And engagement has been reduced. They are no longer, that psychological bond with the organization is now very weak. So they're just coming in to get some salary and to make sure that
That's where you get your 8 to 5 people,
exactly.
8 to 4 people, whatever your hours are.
Exactly.
Where they come to work, they wake up in the morning dreading
exactly
the idea of coming to work. They come to work and they do just enough to not get fired. And even when there's a situation like that, they do less, because they know no one's checking up on them, because the leader is not actually present. And whatever we do is not working. And the big problem with that, like the environment has changed, the CEO or the company has not changed. And the problem, and we've spoken about this before, the problem is there's no realignment of strategy.
Exactly.
And this is where CEOs get it, the average CEO, and we will tell you why we keep saying average CEO just now. The average CEO doesn't think of the strategy. It's always the last thing that comes to mind. But it's the first thing that needs attention. Is the strategy is the only thing that needs to change, not the CEO, not the MD, not the FD, not the anybody. It's the strategy. And this is where people just, it's sad to see it happen. And you can tell people, you can say to people, look, this is what you need to do, and they will not see it. They cannot see it for what it is, because there's that fear, that anxiety, that depression, that denial. And we're not talking about the river Nile, we're talking about denial. Where there's just, that's not me, that's not my fault. Everything I do, I've done everything 100% perfectly, and it's the environment, it's someone else's issue. That's the mistake. The only thing that needs to change is the strategy. And that then gets rid of the ego problems, it gets rid of all of those problems. But it's having the courage to admit that.
Very true. And once there's confusion, then there's immobility. Immobility is a state where people are not moving. They can't go forward, they can't go backwards. They can't go left, they can't go right. They're just stuck there.
They come and sit at
They
their
can't
desk.
come and sit. Immobility. So there is psychological immobility. People think that when you say the company is immobile, they think it's closed. No, there are many immobile companies which are working, but they are immobile in the sense that they don't have a forward motion in terms of their strategy. They are just stuck, like what you have said. They have no strategy. They are just hanging in the environment, like kites. They just environment comes and they are just being swayed in any direction. So they are immobile. They have no direction. They've lost direction. They've lost anything that we call strategic power that can move them through to where they want to go. So they become immobile. So immobility is a serious thing, where people just get stuck in routines. But those routines are now not being driven by a specific direction that our routines are taking us in this direction. They are routines just to make sure the office is open. So
yeah, that's it. We get to work on time. We have tea for 15 minutes.
Exactly.
We have lunch for 1 hour, and we leave at 4 or 5.
4 or 5, exactly.
Get clock watches.
Yeah.
Watches.
Exactly. And also absenteeism will increase.
Yeah.
You find that the rest of absenteeism
That's another early warning system.
Exactly.
It must be paid attention to. If you've
Exactly.
got staff that are calling in sick,
yeah,
it's a problem, and it's a problem to do with the leadership.
exactly.
Always.
Exactly. So you find absenteeism, you find people giving excuses. People are coming for 2-3 hours, and then for some time they are going for lunch. The lunch is 2-3-4 hours, especially if they're executive level.
Yeah.
You really can't track how they're spending their time and where they're spending their time, because they now realize our stay here is limited.
Yeah.
There's no certainty about what's going to happen next.
Yeah.
So everyone is now in this air of confusion. Nothing is going on in a specific direction. So this is serious. And then when this happens, you can kiss that company goodbye. And this is what normally happens. Whatever happens afterwards, when all these things are happening, is something else. And what can only save this company, like what you've said, is the first thing is to have the CEO must come to the realization that he needs to get back on his feet. He needs help. Let me say the issue of help, like what you've said, is critical. To try to fiddle around with this solution, that solution, when the company is struggling, it's a waste of time. Because if you were able to solve the problem, it could not have happened. But the fact that it's happened, it means there is something somewhere. There's something that is lacking that you need support with. So work on your strategy.
You remind me of a quote by Albert Einstein where he says, the same kind of thinking that got you into your situation cannot get you out of your situation.
Precisely.
So what that means, and in the context that you're talking about here, is you get outsiders in. You want an independent, objective opinion. So you get people in that are not necessarily involved at all with the business, and that are professional advisors or professional strategists that can come in and just say, look, this is what we suggest, and then you try that suggestion. The thing about advice as well, like if you're getting consultants or whatever coming in, is advice. You do not have to take all the advice that you are given, but sometimes you just need that different way of looking at the problem.
Exactly.
That will trigger the things in your own mind that will do it, because there's no one better qualified ever to solve a company's problem than the people in the company. But they just need that trigger to get them out of the hole where they can't see. They've got to have something that opens the shutters, and then suddenly you're able to re-strategize, refocus, and then start your regrowth.
You know what happens normally when you're in this particular problem? These problems normally they are not solved by information or knowledge or experience or expertise. They are solved by thinking. So why you want somebody from outside? You want someone who can help you trigger the kind of thinking that will take you out of the situation. This is where most people miss it. They think we need to invite someone who is an expert in this one and that one. No. In this particular situation, the best kind of advice or help that you need is the kind of help that will make you to think yourself out of the problem. Because these problems are solved by thinking, not by knowledge or expertise. So, like what you've said, a person who can help you to think in a different way, who can give you a different way of looking at the situation. You see, because sometimes it's just a small way, you're just missing one or two things. They're looking at a slightly different way.
Most of the time, it's a tiny adjustment.
Exactly.
But if that adjustment isn't made, suddenly it's a
catastrophe.
Catastrophe.
Yeah.
Thanks. That's it exactly. It's a the business dies.
Yes.
Simply because of that fear of what if I look stupid in front of whoever I invite to come and give me advice.
Yeah.
And this is it's a natural human thing that if we hold these senior positions, we cannot have that. It's a luxury that we cannot afford.
Yeah.
That fear
Exactly.
of looking stupid. You have to have the courage to do what needs to be done, because when you're a CEO, and this is an important thing that I think a lot of people forget about, or a leader of a company, the MD, the director, the whatever size business you're in, if you're at the top, there are people that are depending on you. And it's not just the finance director, for example, but it's the finance director's wife, his children, possibly his extended family.
Exactly.
So if you don't have the courage to do what needs to be done, you are not qualified to be a CEO in the first place.
Exactly.
And you need to step down. You need to have the courage to do that
Exactly.
before you ruin other people's lives in the process.
Yeah.
And this is a very sad thing, because it happens so regularly and all over the world. You see where these businesses close, and it's not entirely the CEO's fault, but it is mostly their fault if they don't have the courage to fix the problem in time.
Exactly. You see, the issue is, Brendan, the positions of CEO and leadership, they are not positions to show how smart you are or to show that you can solve problems. It's about making decisions to get things done quickly and mostly to prevent bad things happening. First, to prevent bad things happening. And then secondly, to make sure that your business grows if it's an organization. So it's decision making. So decision making requires information, it requires knowledge, it requires a way of thinking. You can't have all those things by yourself if you're a CEO. This is why it's important that the more serious a problem becomes, the more you need support that can help you to arrive at the correct decision, so that you can have the problem solved as quickly as possible. Yeah. Because you see what the challenge is, most CEOs, they wait until the problem is so big. They will try to fidget around, trying this, trying that, but not realizing that at times just need help as quickly as possible, and make sure that you nip the problem in the bud. You kill the red before it becomes the monster.
Exactly.
That's what it is.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And like the problem is, the bigger the company, the less obvious the decline is.
Exactly.
And so it's a gradual thing. But if you let it go too far, there's no turning back past a certain point. And this is what the early warning systems need to be in place. So your intelligence gathering systems are critical to running a successful business, especially if you're going to outperform the environment, because the environment, like we keep saying, is constantly changing, and the rate of change is constantly increasing. So we need to very quickly, as a society, as a generation, wherever we live in the world today, move away from that misprogramming, or that terrible programming of thinking that we wish it was the way it used to be yesterday or last year or yesteryear. That is never going to happen. In whichever environment you are currently in, it will never go back to the way it was. It cannot. It is against nature for that to happen.
Exactly.
Whether you've had good things happening in your environment or bad things happening in your environment, they're not going to change. They're not going to go back. They cannot. It's impossible. So what has to happen is we have to develop this forward thinking. We have to be constantly looking ahead, because if we're going to have any chance of outperforming our environment, in business especially, we have to be looking forward, and we have to be creating the environment that's conducive for our strategy, or we adapt our strategy. And that's what it always comes back to, is your plan correct for what's actually happening?
Exactly.
So remember, we've talked about having your head in the clouds, which is necessary, especially if you're a CEO. You need to have your head in the clouds. You need to be aiming high. You need to be looking at phenomenal growth in your business. But at the same time, your feet have to be on the ground. You have to not detach yourself from reality. And our normal response to that when the environment has changed is, like you said, denial, anger, all the ugly stuff that comes out, blame,
dismissiveness.
Dismissiveness. You just refuse to get involved, disengagement, all of that. Whereas what we have to work towards and what we have to ensure that we do by programming ourselves, by developing ourselves as a person in these positions, is to constantly be knowing that when this happens, this is how I must behave, and to identify or recognize the early warning systems for what they are and have the courage to act on them straight away, and to know there's a great line from the poem Desiderata where it says there will always be men or women of greater and lesser strengths or capabilities than yourself.
Exactly.
Now that is something that a CEO should have written in his office,
Exactly.
where you can constantly remind yourself that you cannot be the best at everything, and there's always going to be someone that's better than you at something. So get those people in, surround yourself with the right kind of people so that you can make the right kind of decisions, because that is the only way in this current environment that you can excel and you can outperform your environment. You cannot do it on your own.
Exactly. And the last thing we talk about here is leadership. When you're leading your people, one of the things that we need to emphasize is the average CEOs, they mistake or misunderstand what positive thinking is.
Yes.
So when they communicate problems to their followers, to their employees, they want to mask the severity of problems in some positive language, and make the problem appear as if it's something. It's a challenge. It's all these things. I think this is a very serious problem. When you communicate a problem as a CEO, be very, very open and real. If it's a problem, your company is facing problems, it's important to tell all employees so that they know the real situation and the consequences as it is. Even if you can worsen it, it's better. But then you don't end there. You also now move and make sure you communicate to your team that you've got a solution. There's a solution. You find a solution of getting out of the problem. So being real about the problem is critical. But also making sure that you also don't end your message with that narrating the problems and then living there. You need hope. You need to give people faith. You need also to make sure that you guide and direct people so that they know how to get involved in getting out of the problem. Yeah.
And that's how you avoid the people coming to work just to be at work. You get the people coming to work because you've told them, hey guys, there's a serious problem here. This is a serious problem. We're in a bit of trouble as a company.
Exactly.
But don't worry, because here's the strategy. And here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do, here's what you need to do.
Exactly.
And this then gets filtered down to everyone in the company, because if you don't do this, the employees, the lower down you get, the further from the CEO you get, the more the scandals start, the theories, the this, and it spreads a cancer, negativity. This company is doomed. When you've got your employees talking like that, it's your fault because you haven't told them what the plan is. But if you tell them the plan and you get them to rally behind you, now you've gone from that decline to now you are definitely going to be on an incline, because the people naturally are loyal to something, and people naturally want to be part of a challenge. They want to follow someone who's inspiring, someone who can admit that, hey, there's a problem here, but here's the solution. Now let's all get together, let's work, and let's get ourselves out of this situation, because if we do, there's going to be a lot of cake for us all to have a bit of a share of. And this is what leadership's all about. It's about inspiring people to want more, to do more, and to follow you. Follow you not because you force them to follow you. That's a olden day way that will never work, but a way that you inspire them to want to follow you, because of the way that you live your life, the way that you lead your people, the way that you run your company.
Precisely.
And this is how we've got to get when it comes to when the environment changes. We must never ever get to that situation where we blame or where we become anxious. As soon as you start noticing those telltale signs, sit down and look at your strategy. Call in your executive team, call in your advisors, get outside people to come in, share the information with them and see if they can shed a different angle on it that you haven't seen. And that is how you continue to grow, and that is how you continue to outperform your environment in these rapidly changing times. Okay, so I think that's it. Like one of the things that you said during your talk there is we need to predict our future as much as possible in business, and you cannot do that if you are not having good intelligence gathering systems in place, which is your accounts, it's your sales, it's your actual performance versus your budgeted performance. If you don't have that, get that, because in the old days you might have got away with not having it.
Exactly. Also,
but nowadays, just one more thing, there's a great quote as well, that a business without numbers is not a business at all, it's a hobby. Now, ingrain that into your brain, because if you don't know the numbers, and if you're the CEO and you don't know every single day what's happening today, what's happening for the rest of the week, the rest of the month, and what happened previously, it's a hobby. It's not a business that you run.
Exactly. I think the other one thing that we also need to talk about in terms of intelligence is marketing intelligence, market intelligence, because you find that most organizations, they've got marketing departments, and most of the guys in the marketing, they are coming up with marketing plans, but those plans are not based on intelligence. They are based on beliefs and theories and so forth. And that's why you find most companies collapse more, not because they can't outperform the environment, but they are making plans based on something else that is not intelligent. So I think it's important for CEOs especially to understand that they must make sure that at least 40 to 50% of the time the guys who are in the marketing, they are busy gathering what is called market intelligence. That will direct their marketing plans. That will feed into advice to all the other departments in the organization on what they must be doing based on what is coming out from the market. So it's very, very important. But I have seen it many times. This is one critical issue that is missed by many people. They don't know their market, their intelligence, what's going on in the market, what's likely going to happen, where is this market going, and also these trends, to foresee them before they actually come here. It's very, very important, but one of the things that is missed most in most business.
Yeah, it is. Okay, so that's it, guys. We were talking about how do we normally respond to environmental change, and our normal response, our default response, is not the right one. And so when we find ourselves feeling like that, when we find ourselves getting anxious and things like that, we must take it as an early warning system and take what's it called, take actions, or make the right kind of decisions in that moment to get ourselves out of the situation, rather than to dig deeper down the hole. So I hope that you've enjoyed this. There's been a lot that we've covered. Watch the video again if you need to, just to get everything that we spoke about. And we look forward to seeing you in the next episode. Okay, thanks. Thank you, Simon.
You're welcome.